Hey guys, what's going on? It's Blockbird Cryptocurrency, and thank you for tuning in to another episode. Market cap is at $356 billion. As you all know from my previous video, I am waiting for it to go a little bit lower, crossing my fingers. I don't want long-term FUD, but what I do want are good prices. All right, so let's get into some good news today in light of the crashing markets, in light of the Tokyo well and this lawyer at Mount Gox, and these coming talks of regulation, whether it be out of the Netherlands or out of the USA, we keep hearing talk of regulation. Well, I want to share some positive news with you guys from U.S. congressmen talking about that Congress must push back against blockchain over regulation. So I think this is probably the most positive news that we've heard in a while. And I just wanted to share this with you guys. I know some of you are probably down about your positions, but never fear. I think long term we're going to be fine. And thankfully, we do have some elected officials who believe in cryptocurrency. So let's go through this story on Coindesk. Blockchain technology could drive the most significant change in society since the American Revolution, U.S. Rep. Tom Emmer says, but only if regulators resist the temptation to be heavy-handed. Quote, now it's been 230 some years. We've kind of gone through this evolution, end quote. Emmer told Coindesk at the DC Blockchain Summit this week. We've been centralizing, consolidating authority for years. This technology, it could maybe restore what it was the founders were looking for, what they tried to create. But the transformative potential of blockchain and cryptocurrencies will never be fulfilled if regulators overreach, he said. We have to be vigilant, and we have to remember that you create room for innovation when you don't stifle it, Emmer said. In too much regulation, too many regulators has a tendency to put a wet blanket on it. Tell me about it. Totally agree. And that's where Emmer says he and his colleagues on the Congressional Blockchain Caucus come in. So I want to talk a little bit about the Blockchain Caucus after we go through the story and just help you learn a little bit more about them. So he told Coindesk it's up to members of Congress with election certificates to push back where it's appropriate to push back. And he goes on to talk about the Japan model. So as you all know, Japan, of course, is very pro-cryptocurrency. They have a great infrastructure in place. It is legislated, but it's legislated to a minimal extent. Cryptocurrencies have been thriving in Japan for several years, and it seems as though the country is largely behind it. So Emmer said the U.S. would do well to mirror Japan, where only one regulatory body, the Financial Services Agency, has jurisdiction over cryptocurrencies. More clarity and certainty would help the blockchain space to flourish, but the way you do that is you don't have a dozen or so agencies that are all trying to grab for a piece of the jurisdiction and responsibility. Rather, the situation would be one agency, you know where you're going, and you know who's in charge, you know what the issue is, and you have to, and what you have to respond to. So, the story is largely positive, and he's basically just saying, hey, we need to push back against this over regulation. And that's true. As we've seen recently, we're looking for direction from the SEC, the Commodities and Futures Exchange. We're looking to the legislator, but we're not really getting a clear answer in the United States. And some of you who watch one of my earlier videos may recall me advocating for paying attention to your local legislators. And I think this is very important because when we think about the government structure, just going back to, classic civ, we have three primary components. Of course, we have the courts, we have the executive, and we have the legislator. And while we may have these different entities, whether they be the SEC or other financial regulators, at the end of the day, the rule or the law of the land is written by Congress. So I think Congress, you want to keep your eye on what they plan on doing. So let's talk a little bit about the Blockchain Congressional Congress. I actually didn't know that this existed until recently. This is a group just like any other, congressional caucus. You have, of course, different caucuses within the Congress, whether it be the Black Congressional Congress or the Women's Congressional Congress or the Freedom Caucus. There are different interests within the congressional system. So let's find out a little bit about them. Congressional Blockchain Caucus, Congressman Jared Polis and Congressman David Skewkert. Sorry about that. Could have prepared and looked up the pronunciation, but it's all right. So, areas of focus. Government applications. The Congressional Blockchain Caucus is first and foremost interested in how blockchain technology can improve government services. Data ownership, identity, and personal data are nowadays synonymous with fraud and hacking. Blockchain technology poses a solution to identity management, giving an individual ownership of their identity. Healthcare, from smart contracts all the way to patient records. Smart contracts, that's Ethereum, of course. All the way to patient records, blockchain technology offers increased security and ease of use. Now, being the person that I am, suspicious of government intervention in burgeoning technologies, of course, it's had me a little concerned. The government involved with data in healthcare, but they look at the blockchain as a platform, it seems, that can be utilized for their own services. However, this is the important thing, and this is what gave me a sigh of relief. So let's talk about the mission. The Congressional Blockchain Caucus was founded in the 114th Congress and is enjoying significant growth and an ever-expanding focus. We are a bipartisan group of members of Congress and staff who believe in the future of blockchain technology and understand that Congress has a role to play in its development. As a caucus, we have decided on a hands-off regulatory approach, believing that this technology will best evolve the same way the internet did, on its own. The caucus is a platform for industry and government to come together to study and understand the implications of blockchain technology. We're fascinated with the potential for blockchain technology to significantly improve identity management, asset tracking, and ownership, healthcare records management, intellectual property rights, and much more. We're in the early stages of this technology, and we feel it paramount that Congress be a bridge between industry and government to foster collaboration and ensure competitiveness on the global stage. Please feel free to reach out to either of our staff co-chairs for topics you'd like to see addressed at lunch briefings or just ideas you have in general for the caucus. We look forward to working with you. So, if you guys actually want to contact the Congressional Blockchain Caucus, you can do that and shoot them some ideas. I may actually shoot them some ideas of my own. In fact, I'm thinking maybe we could take a poll and come together with some questions, and who knows, maybe it could end up at one of these lunches or one of these events. So, but like I was saying, I was a little, wary of the idea of Congress being involved with identity and being involved with healthcare. But it seems as though they want to utilize their own infrastructure alongside the private infrastructure. And keep in mind, the congressman in that article that I just showed you was discussing the need to move away from centralization. So I imagine a future, if this were not to be too utopian, where the government has its services, whether it be through healthcare management or whether it be through financial management, and they have their own blockchain protocol, while we have our own blockchain protocol. We have our Bitcoin, we have our Ethereum, we have our Litecoin, and so forth. And as they said, the objective is to have as little regulation as possible, and hopefully none. And it seems as though this caucus is quite supportive of that idea. And finally, what I really like about this is that, in fact, it is bipartisan. These guys are Republican and Democrat, and going through the members, there's a mix of Republicans and Democrats. I was actually surprised. I was thinking that one party would maybe bend more towards regulation and the other party would bend more towards libertarianism, if you will. But there seems to be a nice mix, which is good. And I think what this has a possibility to do, in a broader sense, it's bridge the gap between the two competing factions. Even with yourself and maybe some people that you know, where you may be liberal and your friend may be conservative, or you may be libertarian and your friend may be, something else. But what you have in common is the blockchain. And this could be a means, I think, of unifying competing political ideologies. And I know a lot of us kind of have libertarian tendencies, like myself, but I want to see as many people as possible participating in this system. And I think you should as well. So, check them out, guys. I think this is pretty cool. Congressional Blockchain Caucus. And here's a link to their website. I'll actually leave a link in the description at the bottom of this video. And I just wanted to just share some positive news with you in light of the down market. Let's see where we're at. We were at 356 when this video started. Is it up? Is it up? Is it up? Still 356. So looks like we're moving sideways for now. Well, anyways, that's it, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you later. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit the bell. Bye.